Alrighty, I've got my breakfast sandwich made here with the cheese and the egg and on the bagel, the sesame seed bagel, which I like. It's a nice day. It's actually quite nice today. I've heard it's going to be really hot tomorrow. That'll be a change. It's been pretty cold here as of late. Yeah. Yeah. I find it funny, and maybe, I don't know, people who are older like myself watching will know what I'm talking about when I talk about the Cold War. Because we remember the Cold War with all the duck and cover and the Russians and all that, and we had to be afraid of the Russians. The Russians were going to bomb us, and it was going to be pretty bad anyway, and we were all constantly kept on edge, afraid of a nuclear holocaust brought about by the conflict between our side and their side, and all kinds of little wars, skirmishes, and things that were happening. And of course, intelligence agencies and security agencies were able to get away with things that were unconstitutional and everything else because the fear of the Russians outweighed the fear of losing our civil rights and our human rights, our God-given human rights. And so, people put up with a lot that they really shouldn't have because of this fear of the Russians. Well, of course, communism collapsed, or at least appeared to have, in the late 1980s and early 1990s, going back now 35 years ago. It collapsed. And so we were no longer left with that enemy. They were basically made impotent. And so we didn't have to worry about them anymore. And then our governments in the Western world, I think what happened is they panicked and they said, oh shit, what are we going to do now to keep the people in line? We don't have this common enemy anymore. We don't have this boogeyman anymore to fear that we can use to keep people in line, we can abuse people and get away with it. We can, suspend people's civil rights or human rights and get away with it. We can do all sorts of dirty tricks and get away with it. What are we going to do? We like doing dirty tricks. We like abusing people. We like having people under our thumb. What are we going to do now? And so they started looking for alternative enemies. And of course, they also started experimenting with other things. They took the manufacturing away, which employed most of the population. That created poverty. It created hopelessness. It created, because not everybody can be a professional person. Not everybody can be a doctor or a lawyer or a veterinarian or a nurse, or an engineer or whatever. Not everybody can be that. And so what do those people do? Well, I guess they just be unemployed and they draw welfare and, they pick cans and bottles out of the ditches or whatever. That's what they do to survive. And that's pretty depressing. And so then they said, hey, we'll introduce fentanyl. That'll fix them. And they brought fentanyl in, which has been a curse. And all the hopeless people, all the people with nothing to live for, they said, hey, I'll take fentanyl, that'll dull the pain. And it does temporarily, but then it brings on a whole bunch of new problems, and then we get an increase in crime because the people are desperate for their next fix and they'll steal to get it because they don't have the money to pay for it. And then we can say, okay, we got this rash of criminal activity now. What do? Well, we have to take away human rights. We have to give the police more power. We have to do this. We have to crack down on these people and this crime, you see. So that all worked to a degree. Then, of course, they made the Muslim people our enemies. Oh, they're all terrorists. They're out to get us, all that. They blew up the World Trade Center, which it turns out most likely they did not. Uh, the alternative theories of the crime are actually far more credible given the evidence. But still, all right. We got to take away your civil rights. So in the United States, they declared the Patriot Act. After all, we can't have people going around doing stuff like that, like what was done with the Trade Center. As if everybody's doing that, But anyway, so they did that. And of course, anybody who's against losing their civil rights, well, they're a bad person. So you must like terrorism, and you must like crime and everything if you're not for losing your civil rights to help us to fight these things. You must be allied with the criminals and the terrorists if you don't, like that. If you don't support this censorship legislation, well, then you must be allied with the pedophiles, with the child pornographers and stuff, because they'll slip in a little thing about child pornography in a censorship law that's designed to keep you from being able to criticize the actions of your government. And that's the true focus of it, but they'll put a little blurb in there about people who commit sex crimes against kids. And then they'll say, well, you must be in favor of pedophilia then. You must be in with the pedophiles, with the child pornographers and so on. This is what they do. These are the little mind games they play. And unfortunately, a lot of people buy it. And that's sad, but a lot of people do. And anyway, so they pulled all that on us. Then COVID came. That was the next thing. You got to be afraid of this mystery thing that floats through the air, and you breathe it in and you die. And if somebody stands within 6 feet of you and breathes, they'll kill you. Somebody standing within 6 feet of you breathing, they're committing attempted murder. They're an attempted murderer. They're trying to take your life. And all this business, and if you don't take the shots, well, then you're a criminal, and you hate people, and you want to kill everybody, and all the rest of it. So you got that to deal with. And again, you got to take your civil rights away. We got to take your human rights away for your own good. You can't have Christmas this year. For your own good. You can't see Grandma at the nursing home. Grandma's in there dying. You can't go in there and hold her hand and tell her you